The Forest Collective's 2025 staging of Labyrinth is coming to the Abbotsford Convent in just a couple weeks, and here to chat all about it is the composer, music director and sound designer Evan Lawson and the director of the show, Cathy Hunt. Welcome.
Hello. Good morning.
Thank you.
Hi. So this is the second time you're staging Labyrinth. What is the story and what's different this time?
So I'll probably take that question. So the story is it's the myth of Theseus, Ariadne and the Minotaur from ancient Greece. So the work is an immersive multi-room dance opera piano concerto. So in our version, the Minotaur, the monster, is played by the pianist. So you're exploring various rooms at Abbotsford Convent, going on this journey that Theseus is sort of guiding us on. And on that journey, we meet dancers, we meet instrumentalists, but you can hear the piano kind of like rumbling and grumbling in the background, and eventually we meet the piano and we're sort of confronted by this sort of virtuosic piano, which is the monster. So we also add a character that's not in the original myth, Daedalus, who is the original architect of the labyrinth, and in our version Daedalus is like this sort of mad scientist that's been trapped in his own creation and he's stuck roaming around in the labyrinth.
Cool. So does the audience come together as a clump, or is it a bit like an explore, choose your own adventure situation?
No, the audience is in a clump. The nature of an opera, right, it's got to kind of be like a thing that happens, like a narrative line that happens. So yeah, you meet Theseus at the beginning and he sort of guides us through, and we meet Ariadne on the way, we meet dancers, we meet Daedalus. So yeah, very much a clump. In an ideal world, it'd be really cool if it was this sort of interactive like opera. Maybe that's the next iteration of it, where it's like, you know, choose your own adventure. But at this stage, with this amount of money and this amount of time, it is very much a clump.
Yes. And
Don't go.
And Cathy, what stepping into the shoes of director this time around, how does it feel? What have you changed?
Well, it's really good because we know it worked last time.
Yes.
So that's always reassuring. And we've been able to have a bit more time and space to kind of tease out some of the threads. Especially for the female character, Ariadne. So the librettist, Dan, has written a whole lot of new material, which will be really exciting. Like, we just wanted to understand, she's the daughter of Minos, who employed Daedalus, the mad scientist, to build the labyrinth. So she is kind of trapped there, and the Minotaur is actually her little brother. Because her mum had sex with a bull in a contraption that Daedalus built.
Yes. So
it's sort of a show about people who have strange desires, which makes it very appropriate for midsummer.
We kinked it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically this woman, Ariadne, is kind of stuck there and she needs to get out. So we just wanted to understand a bit more about what her... Because, you know, in opera stuff happens really quickly and it's kind of epic. It's like the singers have got this superpower. So you want them to have conviction, and as soon as they sing, they really do, you know?
Yeah.
But we just wanted the audience to understand a bit more. And I guess that's my speciality, like story and kind of focusing on what the audience's experience is. So that's why they brought me in for this iteration.
Amazing.
What's the part of the myth and story and narrative that we get to see in this?
So we are so in the original myth, the Athenians, so Theseus, the prince, is an Athenian, had to kind of provide a tribute of humans to be sacrificed every year. So like 7 Athenian youths were provided to the Minotaur for his dinner.
I love this.
And so Theseus is kind of setting out to win his father's good opinion by like stopping this tribute. So to do that, he has to kill the Minotaur.
Okay.
So the audience are kind of positioned as the Athenians who are going into the labyrinth and risking being sacrificed and eaten by the Minotaur.
Okay.
So they are connected to the peril, and we want them to kind of feel a bit the intensity of coming towards the sound of the grand piano that's playing the Minotaur. So, and then the final kind of concerto is like a reenactment of the battle, but it's abstracted. So it's like, if Theseus doesn't win, you get chomped.
You get eaten. Yeah. Wow. Really cool. Why did we pick the labyrinth as our subject?
Yeah.
I have a strong interest in ancient Greek myths. All my other operas, except one, are about ancient Greek myths. I've got one about Orpheus. I've got one about Calypso and Odysseus. So it's just like common territory for me. And so within that, like, particularly for Midsummer, I always think it's interesting exploring these myths because often there's like a gender fluidity in them that, you know, we don't necessarily immediately think of. Like, I think Greek myth and myth in general is often sanitized in this like Victorian era, rose-colored glasses, princess and the hero and all this stuff, when it's like a lot of them had same-sex relationships, or, there's a lot of like
bestiality.
Complexity. Exactly, right? Like, it was a really difficult time in the world.
Yeah.
People, it was a very different society. So I just find that sort of exploration and sort of recontextualizing myths really important. And like, also in an opera context, there are so many operas about myths, and there's so many of them are like misogynist and from the 17th century or whatever. And so it's just interesting to kind of reevaluate these characters and to, give Ariadne a contemporary agency. And like, she was a person who lived and breathed and, was a human who had agency, right? She wasn't just this like forlorn princess who was at the whim of the gods or whatever, like rethinking all of that. And then also like talking about the world, right? That's what gods are and goddesses. They're just elements of the world. They're a way to understand what the wind is or what rain is. So there's kind of like a contemporary sort of environmental aspect to it that I find really interesting, where it's like, myths are about how we understand what the world is. That's what art is, right? And then that's so much what music is like, what is the world for me? So those things kind of bubble away for me really easily. And then for Forest in general, like, as I said, we've done a number of my operas about these myths, and they've always been in a like staged thing, maybe with dancers, but like there's an audience, there's a stage, great. And then I thought, wouldn't it be cool to do something that is like immersive, multi-room, has that kind of contemporary theatre, thing at the moment everyone seems to be doing, and a sort of immersive work. How can we do that with opera? Because I don't think anyone's done it. There's probably someone out there who's done it, but I think we're probably one of the first companies to do something like this.
I haven't heard of an immersive opera yet.
And I don't think I've seen an opera live.
Yeah, well, please come along. This is a great one because it's an hour long. It's 3 characters. It's straightforward. It's in English.
Very beautiful dancers.
Beautiful dancers. Like, there's something for everyone. There's also music, soundtrack, like electronic music. Like, it isn't just an opera singer warbling at you, which is a beautiful thing and really cool when they are right in your face. But there's elements in it that are instrumental that are also electronic as well. So it has a sort of immersive thing that hopefully isn't the thing that you think of what an opera is. If that makes sense.
Very exciting.
Yeah, tell us a bit about the cast. You said there are dancers. Who's in it?
So our 3 singers, we've got Daniel Sezion Todd, who's also the librettist. So he wrote the text. So it's really exciting. Dan is singing his own words that I've set.
Cool.
So Dan's a tenor. We've worked together many, many years, old mates. Teresa Ingrilli is our Ariadne. She's a fabulous emerging soprano. And Girl Whatever, who's a fabulous pop musician, singer, artist. She's singing the role of Daedalus. They all sang in the original production. Kim Tan is our core flute player who's playing flutes in the production. Alex McDonald is our viola player. Danae Killian is our piano soloist playing the Minotaur. And then our dancers, we've got Charlie MacArthur, who is joining us for the first time in this production, dancing in the piece. And Ashley Dugan is our choreographer and dancer.
And when you write something like this, where do you even begin writing this entire show as a composer?
Yeah. Good question. So, I mean, the process in general with any sort of opera, for me, in my experience, is text first. So I'll work quite closely with a librettist, or I'll develop the text myself. So in this work, the original concept was actually for a piano concerto for Danae, to write Danae. She's an incredible pianist. Like, she's just the most poetic, incredible artist. And so it's like, I have to write a big, crazy virtuosic piece for Danae. Like, how cool is that? So it was like, okay, I want Danae to do this thing. I want to give the Minotaur a voice. And in my previous mythological operas, I've got one where I had gods and goddesses and, all the kind of myth characters, walking around singing. And I was like, this is really lame. So in my next opera, Orpheus, I gave all the gods and all the kind of magical creatures, I made them instruments. So it was really abstract that, like, oh, Zeus, please give me the thing. And then the instrument would reply. Cool. So it just had like an element that was kind of abstract, and it made the audience kind of hopefully think a little bit more about what that elemental world thing is. So I was like, okay, I want to make the monster the piano solo, and then I'll include the voices around that. And it just, in my discussions with Dan, at some point it became immersive. Like, I don't know how, but at some point it became this like multi-room thing, because it was like, oh, cool. we can tell this story across a journey, and we do a lot at the Abbotsford Convent, and there was a new space in the previous production being activated that had this labyrinth-like feel. So it was probably like, I checked the space out, went, perfect, cool, this is really cool, let's do it here. It's very much my vibe is like writing the piece for the site and the people that are in the show. So from that process, really, it's just about, Daniel wrote the words, I sit down and write the music, we rehearse it and we put it on. I mean, it sounds really silly. Of course, we revise and change things, and we're doing, of course, a lot of that with Cathy's contribution, but that's really
And the space is really archetypal.
Yes.
Because we're in the Magdalen Laundries and the Industrial School, which is a different space than the performance was on last time. Last time it was more basementy, but this time it really does feel like we're on a prison island,
Cool.
So it's just, and we've sort of had fun planning the pathway for the audience so that we can kind of evoke that archetypal feeling of being caught in something that you can't get out of.
Yeah.
And then what the release is after the 1 hour.
Well, Labyrinth is one of my favourite of all the Greek myths. It's amazing that they're still so rich with stuff we can use to create theatre. Yeah, I guess I don't really have a question, just reflecting on.
I was thinking about that when you said it before, and it's almost because they don't say too much. So there's a lot of stuff that's left unsaid in why people do what they do, and so it's kind of juicy to go back and kind of re-enter, re-contemplate.
And I remember reading them after I'd learnt them as a kid and then going, oh, whoa, there's so much more in this that is very much, not PG, that I enjoy. I love that you get to bring that into it and not sanitize.
And the feeling of like being in the dark, holding onto a thread.
Yeah,
like trying to find your way and knowing that something scary is coming for you.
Yes.
That's a really powerful feeling.
Totally.
Yeah.
And as a performer, Cathy, yourself, how's it been directing a show?
It's very fun. We were doing some Laban exercises.
Oh, I love Laban.
With the dancer who came into a rehearsal last night, and also it was very windy in the Abbotsford Convent in the space we were in, so you could see all the trees kind of dancing, responding to him outside the windows. It's great. Look, I don't have the expertise of being an opera singer myself, but I'm very willing to make a fool of myself. So
yeah, you've got an alter ego. Tell us a bit about your alter ego.
Yes, my alter ego, Ms. Beige Brown, feminist performance poet. She's been beyond because she had to prove her relevance to an Australia that was unaware of her existence. So she's a permutative performance poet, and she exists in that sort of arena of 90s feminism.
And does she ever come through when you're being Cathy? Does she ever poke her head in?
Well, people say that we seem related, but I don't know why, because I created her in the beginning out of everything I didn't want to be. And I started wearing my mum's old clothes, but fashions have come around so much that now they're very Melbourne.
Is
that why her name is Miss Beige Brown?
She's called Ms. Beige Brown. It's kind of a tribute to a lecturer I had at university.
Amazing.
That's great.
And Evan, tell us a bit about the Forest Collective. What do you guys do outside of Labyrinth?
Yeah, so Forest Collective is primarily a musical ensemble, but we're also a dance company, as you've probably gathered from this discussion. We formed in 2009, so quite a while ago, from projects that I was developing when I was studying. So there were interdisciplinary projects with musicians. So we'd often done, music and film, music and dance. Speak of an art form, we've worked with it, we've done it. In about 2013, we formed more of a musical ensemble kind of structure, and from 2018, we've had a permanent roster of musicians of about 16, probably more now, 20 musicians, something like that. So when the full cohort is around, we're almost a chamber orchestra with singers, but we're also within that cohort of musicians. They all come from differing backgrounds. So we have jazz musicians, we have improvisers, we have experimental music, we have pop music. So I'm very keen as someone from the classical canon that making sure that every project is different. Every project is speaking to different types of music, and that when we are doing interdisciplinary work like Labyrinth, that the theatre element and the storytelling element is like sort of central to the music making. So I love my colleagues that put a concert on in a church and it's, a string quartet or whatever. Great. That's not what we do. We try and, when we do is more of a standard concert, we try and think about it in a way that's more theatrical and staged and that sort of thing. So, yeah, we've done such a broad range of stuff over the years. Yeah.
Well, you've been composing since the age of 10.
I have, yes, yeah.
So,
little busy bee that I am.
Do you remember your very first
Composition.
Opera?
Oh,
Composition,
so
that's the
bad.
word.
Yeah, they're so bad. I can tell you, my first opera was about Little Red Riding Hood. Isn't
Good.
that cute? When I was 10. I was like,
Adorable.
Little Red Riding Hood. And then I wrote like a proper opera when I was 16, 17 about Debussy. So like Debussy had this just awful relationships with women. He treated women like absolute rubbish. And I wrote this opera about it, being like, I'm 16 and I'm broody and like I know all about this. And I actually rewrote our previous opera that Forrest did in December, just before Labyrinth, December 2023, was actually a revision of that idea.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so I often do this, like, and I've probably written a Minotaur Ariadne thing. I have done a previous opera about this that I've, like, since, removed from my catalogue. So I often go back to, like, things from adolescence or, like, early 20s and revised it and
Yes.
stuff. Yeah.
We need a Red Riding Hood opera next.
We
It'd be
do.
cool.
I
yeah.
reckon it'd be really
An immersive
cool.
Little Red Riding Hood opera
Yeah,
would be really
definitely.
cool.
Yeah.
I agree. You got to make your way to Grandma's house.
Yeah.
Yes.
Featuring Beige Brown. That's nice.
She can be Granny.
Hello. Oh,
Yes.
Ageism.
Exactly.
yeah. There you go. Labyrinth on at the Abbotsford Convent. When is the first show?
31st of January. Very soon.
How very exciting. I
Yes.
cannot wait to see this. Cathy Hunt, Evan Lawson, took us for the run, and we'll see you there.
We'll see
Thank
you
you
there.
so.
Thanks.